Hi there, and today we're going to be talking about what it's like to send my kids back to school in the fall of 2020 during the corona outbreak in Denmark. Stay tuned. Hi there and welcome back. If you're new to my channel, my name is Kelly and I'm an American who lives in Denmark. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to my channel and don't forget to ring the bell to get notifications whenever I post new videos. I just wanted to give you a little peek into the life of what it's like for me in a small town and how it's been sending my kids back to school a week ago. Now, I know a lot of you are kind of stressed right now with the idea of putting your kids back in school or starting a semester of homeschooling. I know how that is very stressful, especially if you've got a lot of other things that you need to be taking care of for yourself, like work, for example. During March of 2020 in Denmark, schools were shut down. I go to college here in Denmark. My kids go to elementary school. Both schools were closed. But everybody had to do online learning, and it was a really interesting experience having to be a college student and homeschool my kids at the same time, who were in first and third grade then. My husband worked from home. We were all here and we were all trying to juggle space and noise and schedules and all sorts of things. So it was really a stressful time for me, I know. But I know some of you have it much worse, because you've done that all of the remainder of the spring semester and you're about to do that here in the fall. I just want to tell you that I'm thinking of you. I know how this is going to be, an unknown and a kind of a shaky time, but everybody has to pull together. That's all I have to say. Here in Denmark, though, kids are back in school. Kids went back to school in April. And it was actually at the time when the corona was the highest here in Denmark, and I was a little afraid about sending my kids back to school. I did a live video back in April, and I'm going to put a link to it here in this video, here and down below in my description, so you can find that if you want to see what it was like to send kids back in April of 2020. Our lives were pretty much still quarantined and staying at home. The kids went to school, and as soon as school was over, they came home. And there are a lot of things that went into play, and it's very different even from now. My kids are now in 4th and 2nd grade, and they went back to school just a week ago. This is the middle of August of 2020. I right away was very curious to know how things were going to be. Our numbers for corona are nowhere near what they were in April. So I felt a little bit better about sending my kids back to school. But still, during the time in April, everything was closed. Nobody could get in or out of Denmark. So I felt that maybe the corona could be contained. And we live in a small town. So most people don't actually have corona who live here. We live in a very rural area, lots of farmland, and you don't tend to get high numbers in places like that. But in the summertime, when the temperatures started to warm up, Denmark started opening their borders. It started opening it to its neighbors. Norway and Germany and Iceland were the first people who could come in to Denmark. And then it started opening up to more countries and more countries. For me specifically, I was really worried about all of these different people coming in. And because the thing is in Denmark, we have this mindset of if the government will tell you that you need to stay home, people stay home. They don't question it. They know that the government actually takes care of them because of the healthcare system here, for the most part. And people are taken care of with, if they lose their jobs, there's programs put into place. So people aren't so afraid of just relying on themselves that if the government says stay home, then they stay home. So you almost have to feel like, well, if they are opening the doors to these other countries, then you have to think that everything's going to be okay. We did not leave Denmark over the summer. I did not want to have any possible risk of getting corona because I was about to have knee surgery. I had knee surgery a week ago. I'm making a video on that. You'll be able to find that link up here or down here somewhere. and you can find out about my corona test and what it was like to have surgery in Denmark during corona times. Crazy. Not a lot of people left Denmark, but some people did. With people leaving and coming back, you know, it still makes parents a little concerned. What's it going to be like when the kids go back to school? Are there going to be kids who are coming back from summer vacation with corona? I know that if you traveled to another European Union country, you didn't have to go through a quarantine. There were certain countries on the list where if you went there, you would have to quarantine for 14 days. Maybe I'm a worrier, I don't know. But I had a lot of things going through my mind of, well, you know, is it really safe? Then the weekend before my kids actually started school, we had a spike in corona cases. It was over 100. It was like 128 or something cases that we got in the jump from Saturday to Sunday. And 70 something of those were in the second biggest town in Denmark, which is called Aarhus, which is not too far from here. There are people that live in my town who work in Aarhus, or there are people who live in Aarhus that come to my town. And I know that that was something right away that the government jumped on, and they said that if you are living in Aarhus, a lot of people actually had to stay home and work if they could. There were a lot of things put into place for that, and that made us feel a little bit safer, but still knowing that that's very close to home, it is the area right now that has gotten the most amount of cases. It's not too far from me. The government has put in a lot of other restrictions for people who live in Aarhus or traveling to Aarhus, so it shouldn't be a problem with my kids going to school. But these are things that I'm thinking of, and of course they happen right as the kids are going back to school. First day of school comes around, which is also the day that I have surgery, so there's another little bit of stress going on. But my kids go to school and they actually each have their own door that they have to enter. So first grade has their door, second grade has their door. There's specific doors that are just for specific kids. Parents are still not allowed to go into the building, it's just the child. They go in, they take off their shoes, they wash their hands, and they go in the classroom. I had to peek in the window to see my son's classroom this time around, because normally you can go in with them and look in the door and have an idea of how everything is set up, because, you know, it's a small town and it's pretty easy going like that. But I haven't been able to go into my children's school since before the lockdown, and that was March 11th. It's been a different kind of change for me. They're doing what they can to, you know, minimize the traffic of people going in and out of the school, which I think is great. My youngest son was telling me now that he has to wash his hands, he has to clean his desk. Every time he goes out of the room and comes back in, he has to wash his hands. So obviously that is going out for recess. They have 2 different recess periods a day. So they go out for recess, they wash their hands when they come back in. They're obviously taking fruit breaks and lunch breaks, and they go and wash their hands beforehand. And in my mind, I keep thinking, I would have my kids do that anyways. Those would be mandatory hand washing times anyway. So I'm really hoping that the school continues having the kids wash their hands. I think it's a fantastic thing for them to learn personal hygiene. With little kids, you never know when they're washing their hands. And I think that this should just be something that they adapt in their normal day-to-day. But he was also saying that when he comes in from Frickfritter, they also have to kind of clean off their desk and spray it down and everything. Well, the desks are just, you know, regular small tables, so it doesn't have a whole lot of compartments or anything that they really have to get into cleaning. I also noticed that before, you know, they were doing a lot more distancing, and I think this time around I haven't seen that, because when I looked inside the classroom, I noticed that his desk was right next to someone else's, but there was only 2 kids, you know, connected at a time. That could just be how the teacher decided to structure the classroom. I don't think that was more so with Corona. You know, it seemed like they took every available space to spread these kids out before, but now that's not so much the case. They also still do have designated bathrooms. The way that their school is set up, 2 boy and girl bathrooms for the grades and everything. It's not like a wing, but you know, you'll walk down and what looks like you're turning into a classroom is actually a bigger area with like a kitchen and like a big open space and maybe 4 classrooms. I mean, it all depends. We live in a small town, so the school is not filled by any means. You actually have a very small amount of kids using one bathroom, so they're able to kind of keep track of that a little bit more often. I know in Aarhus, for example, like what I said, they're taking more restrictions, you know, like kids who go to the high school and university, they're making them stay home for a couple of weeks to kind of see if the situation improves, and then perhaps they would actually go back to school. I go back to school as a college student, which I'm gonna tell you all about in another video, so you'll have to check that out. I have a playlist with all of my videos about me studying in Denmark as an American and being a mom over 40. So you can check that out about how things have changed for me, because things are changing big time with my college due to Corona. But when we think about like outside activities, you know, I mean, our schools don't have sports activities. You have to do everything through the sports center, and everything is right on schedule as it normally would be. You know, there's still soccer, there's still tennis. With the sports, everything is pretty much the same as it would normally be. And we haven't seen a lot of restrictions there. A big thing that's the difference, you know, when you look at Danish schools is that the kids aren't walking around in the hallways. The kids are in one classroom all day long, and a different teacher will come in and out. And when I think about people who are sending their kids back to school in the US, and for example, I have cousins in Ohio. Their kids are going back to school. My nephews live in Illinois. They're doing homeschool. All the states are doing their own thing. It is so different depending on where people live. So you can't just say, what are they doing in the US? Well, you'd have to say which part. In Denmark, it's pretty much straight across the board. Everybody's kind of doing the same thing. Obviously, schools are kind of approaching things differently depending on the size and supplies and staff and things that they have. But it's so interesting to see that there are plenty of schools in the US where the kids are going back to school, and I get so concerned about things like that, because I was an American high school teacher, and I know that when that bell rings and those kids have to go from one class to another, those hallways are so packed, filled with kids, and you have to touch each other. You know, you only get so many minutes to go from one place to another, and these buildings are huge. You know, and I keep thinking, I don't know, I just worry, you know, and I know that if you were, you know, a teacher or a parent of a child in a school in the US and you're going through a similar situation, I can just imagine how you're feeling right now. For me, specifically, as I mentioned, my kids are in elementary school. They don't leave that classroom at all. And they're only exposed to the kids in that room, and they're only exposed to a couple of different adults that kind of come in and out every week. And I think that really helps and makes a difference. But obviously, the kids who are going to school don't have any symptoms and they're not sick. In Denmark, if you're sick, you stay home. And I know that in the US, it's not so easy to do, because staying home means maybe losing a paycheck, or maybe it means losing your job. It's not so forgiving in the US to take off work, to be sick. Maybe you only have a handful of sick days. It's such a different mentality of how the country takes care of their people, and it's really kind of sad to know that you have to decide whether or not to put yourself or others in jeopardy, otherwise to lose your job. There are a lot of factors, and I know that if you are an American parent and you're sending your kids back to school, I'm sure there's a lot of different things put into place with trying to keep the kids safe, and that's really the best thing, is just making sure that it's an environment where the kids can be safe. I know personally here in Denmark, in our small town, in our little school where my kids have barely 18 kids in a class, it's very safe. I feel pretty good about the whole situation with them going and not bringing anything home. Again, only time will tell, because we don't really know. It's been 1 week and things have actually been pretty positive here. They've been positive in our community. They've been positive in our house. I don't know about other places. If you live in other places in Denmark, please let me know in the comments. How has that first week of school been for your kids? Where do you live? Please, I would love to know. If you are a student watching my videos, please let me know about your school situation, where you live in Denmark. Are you in a bigger city? I would really be curious to know specifically for those bigger cities, like Aarhus or Copenhagen. I would be very curious to know some of these places where you had to separate the kids and now they're kind of all back into the same classroom. Is that the case for you? Are you a parent from another country? What's the situation like where you live? Are your kids going back to school, or is it homeschool for right now? And how long? I really hope that everybody has a good school year this year, and I hope you have some really good experiences. Again, you know, the best thing you could do is to teach your kids to cover their cough, cover their sneeze, and to wash their hands. That's the best advice we can give, because at the end of the day, when we send them out the door, we really have little control over what happens. Let's all stick into this together and we'll get through it. Thanks for coming along on this video. Don't forget to leave me a comment. Let me know how the situation is for you. If you've got any questions, please put them down there as well. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe. And I will see you very soon. Take care.